Hello and welcome again to Charles Kelly from Money Tips, bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money. Well, today I'm going to show you how to save paying 40% on your overdraft, because that is what's going to happen very soon. Just to introduce myself to you, I'm Charles Kelly. I used to be a financial advisor. I had 25 years in financial services, working for banks, insurance companies and various organisations, including my own in IFA practice, independent financial advisor. And I've seen literally thousands of people and looked at their financial situation in quite a lot of depth. And that's why I wrote the book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, which shows you how to manage your money, how to save money, earn a bit of extra money, and put something aside for your retirement, but also be happy with the money that you're making and have the right money mindset. Hi to everyone coming on Facebook Live. Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in, and to my iTunes and Stitcher podcast. Thanks for tuning into that as well. Now, you may have read, some of you, if you're in the UK, that banks were told by the government to stop charging such high unauthorised overdraft fees. So all the banks have got together now and said, right, we won't charge those, but instead we're just going to whack up fees for all overdrafts, whether authorised or unauthorised, to just under 40% in some cases. That's 40%. Yes, you heard it right, 40%. Now, this is supposed to be in an age where we are in a low interest rate age. The base rate, the bank lending base rate, is just 0.75%, and normally you would expect to borrow at base rate plus 2, 3, 4%. No, they're doing it at base rate plus 39%. That's what they're doing. It's actually about 50 times the base rate. And the banks can borrow the money at very cheap rates themselves and then just lend it out. That's what they're in business for. And if you think that the London, or the LIBOR London Interbank offered rate, or the London Interbank lending rate, that the rate that they can borrow between themselves is less than 2%, 1.96% for a whole year. They can borrow money and then they can lend it out at all sorts of rates. And if you're taking an overdraft rate, they can lend it out at 20 times that. It really is money for old rope. No wonder the banks are considered to be running the world and running our lives, because they are. And why, if you go to any big city all over the world, you see the tallest buildings there. What nameplate is on that building? It's the banks. Well, either the banks or the insurance company, or they're owned by pension funds. But it's the banking industry. And also the banks can borrow at even lower rates. From who? From us. When we give our money to the banks, when we put our money into an account, we're effectively lending that money to them, and they can do what they like with that money. It's not even your money anymore. And they can pay you as little as 0.1%, 0.25%. Some of the banks, Santander, have dropped their savings rate whilst whacking up the rate on overdrafts. So it's almost criminal. You couldn't make it up. So the banks can borrow from us at 0.25% or very low rates anyway on a current account, where they're supposed to pay you a bit of interest. You see that the interest is paltry, and yet if you go overdrawn, they will be charging you 40% per annum. So it really is scandalous. And who does it affect? Well, it affects about 19 million people use an arranged overdraft every year, and about 14 million people use an unarranged overdraft. That means they've gone overdrawn in their account without authorization, so it's not arranged. And these are the people who used to get penalised with extra charges, £30, £25 penalty fees plus interest. And this can send people into a spiral of debt, as charges are added on charges, because when you add on the charges, you're even more overdrawn. So you could be overdrawn by £10 and then get a £25 charge. So suddenly you're £35 overdrawn. Then the next direct debit comes in and that bounces, so they charge you for that as well, for bouncing the direct debit. For the pleasure of not paying the direct debit, they charge you again. And these charges can actually spiral into hundreds of pounds of charges, and then add to the woes of the overdraft. Now, about 7 million people use both an arranged overdraft and an unarranged overdraft each year. Now, obviously the key is to manage your money here. That's the important thing, that you know what's in your account. And it's usually very easy because most people can get banking on their phone through an app, and they can check what's in their account every day. So the idea really that you shouldn't go overdrawn, but sometimes it happens. We all make mistakes. We all, from time to time, have a little disaster, and we may go overdrawn. Now, apparently they made 2.4 billion from overdraft fees, and 30% of that came from unarranged overdraft fees and charges. Now, these fees and charges have been abolished, so this is why they're trying to make the money that they're effectively, well, they would say losing by charging everybody, this 40% rip-off fee, and there's not much we can do about it. Santander Bank has already started, some of the other major banks, and they'll all follow. They're like a cartel. They're really kind of running everything as a little cartel. It's funny how they all did this at the same time, isn't it? I thought we're supposed to have competition in this country. The banks really run things here, and this is why, during the financial crisis, they were just too big to fail. They had to be bailed out because they could have brought the whole country down had they been allowed to fail. And now we hear that a lot of governments are again printing money to put into banks to buy their bonds, supposedly so the banks will lend money to businesses, which doesn't seem to have happened over the last 10 years when they did this, but that's going on anyway. And, if you look at the debt problem, it often starts when people open their first bank account. Maybe they're 18 years old, they might be a student, they may be at work, and the bank says, we'll open a nice account for you. Yes, and we'll give you this, we'll give you a checkbook, and we'll give you a debit card, and we'll give you a credit card. Oh, what do I want a credit card for? Well, you need this to build up your credit rating. We need to build up your credit rating so that later on you can get a mortgage. So, in other words, they're giving you an unsecured credit card to build up your credit rating. Well, if your credit rating was that bad, why are they giving you unsecured credit cards? So that later on you can get a mortgage from who? From them, from the bank. So, if they're good enough to give you an unsecured credit card and a debit card to go and spend as you will, why do they need to build up your credit rating to give you a mortgage? It's all a load of crap. They don't need to do this. This credit scoring thing is just a made-up thing. They put their own credit score system in place when they're giving you a mortgage. So, they could do without the credit card. They don't need to see you in debt. And basically, it's to get you in debt, isn't it? Credit card should be called a debt card. Easy credit should be called easy debt. That's what it is. And it just gets people into this debt and habit of living on debt, living on credit for the rest of their lives. I think you've got to be very careful. Warren Buffett said that borrowing money on credit cards, which incidentally can come up to 20%, 25%, certainly 16, 17%, when base rates have been down there for years. I mean, credit cards were always about 20% when interest rates used to be 10 and 12%. Now they're charging those sort of rates when interest rates are down to 0.5% and 0.75%. They're still charging these sort of rates. So it really is just a rip-off. And Warren Buffett said that borrowing money on credit cards at 16% to buy consumer goods that go down in value is dumb. And he should know he's one of the richest men in the world. And that's why he owns credit card companies to lend to so-called, he would name as dumb people. Now, let's stop for a minute. Obviously, we need credit cards, we need debit cards, we sometimes need a credit card to pay for flights, to pay for things. But if they're managed properly and the amount is paid off each month, that's fine. A credit card is a useful tool, but it shouldn't be a way of life. And bear in mind, if you just pay the minimum on a credit card, you just keep paying that minimum, it can take 10 years to pay your amount off because the minimum is barely covering the interest rate. And what you need to do is next time you get your bank statement or your credit card statement, look at interest charges. That's money just going out of the window. It's going down the drain. It's money straight off your bottom line. Look at the interest charges that they're charging you. Just look at that payment. It's on your card. You'll see the balance, what you spent this month, and then look at the interest. That's the interest they're charging you. And a lot of young people now are getting into a situation where they've got 10, 25, £25,000 of just unsecured credit card debt. So you've got to be careful. And I think you've got to look at the type of spending habits that you have. Are you the type of person that just goes out at lunchtime and walks into a shop and just spends? Let's buy this, let's buy that, because I can put it on the card, because it's less painful on the card, isn't it? getting money out of your wallet and partying with your cash is somehow, it feels more painful than just tapping a machine and paying for it with your credit card. So you've got to get into this habit of not just spending money willy-nilly like that. And some people would call it mindful spending, where, you think about things. Do I really need this? Do I really want this? Why am I buying this? Mindful spending. Think about that. And in terms of paying for those little disasters, there's adverts on telly. Oh, my washing machine's broken down. How can I pay for it? I can't pay for that washing machine. The boiler's broken down. And then this voice comes out. Why not get a little loan from us? Why not get a credit card? There's Ocean credit cards. They've got this little song that the Smokey Robinson song, Second That Emotion, da, 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 and people are walking around with a credit card. Oh, I've got an Ocean credit card. They're so happy. It's fun having a credit card, but it's not much fun when you're paying it back, is it? It's great to get it. Oh, let's get an easy loan. Yes, that's done. Thank you, Ocean. Thank you, MasterCard. Thank you, Visa. You've helped me. Well, why not have your own buffer? Instead of having to go for credit all the time, build up your little buffer. Build up some emergency fund. Don't be like these people that have never got any savings, never got any money, because then they're a slave to the credit cards and the banks. Let's face it, the credit cards and the banks are the same people. They're the same crowd. They're the same crooks that push the credit card on you so you can get a credit score, so that they can lend you, give you an overdraft, a mortgage later on, which is secured. So they haven't got any problem because it's secured on a house. But they have to give you an unsecured credit card so that they can give you a secured loan later on, because then you build up your credit score. Now, don't get me wrong, you do need to have a good credit score, you do need to have a rating, you do need to look after your credit, which is why you shouldn't be getting in debt. And the worst way you can ruin your credit is by paying everything late. And if you go into unarranged overdrafts, it will show on your bank statement, then lenders are not going to want to lend to you because they can see you're in problems. If you miss payments on credit cards because you've got too many of them, you're going to have problems. Now, a lot of people have been using this trick of switching their money to interest-free, sorry, my throat is drying up here, interest-free credit cards, but they're going to dry up very soon anyway, just like my throat is, because they're reining those in at the moment. So build up your own savings buffer, have a few £1,000s there so that you can cover the car breaking down, the boiler going, or those little things that happen all the time. It's always going to happen, so make sure you've got the money there to pay for it, so that you're not always running to your credit card and getting into further debt. So there you go. If you want to know more about how to manage your money, look at my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. Get it on Amazon. And just be careful there with these credit cards, and especially be careful with these overdrafts, these overdrafts, because you could end up, as a lot of people are, ending up in the bankruptcy courts or going for IVAs and voluntary arrangements and that sort of thing, which are fine. That will get you out of trouble, but then that will stay on your credit file for a long, long time and make it very difficult. We all need to be able to borrow money for mortgages and to buy assets. That's what you want to borrow money for, is to buy assets, not to buy cars and consumer goods. So make sure you've got a clean credit history, and don't be in this debt spiral where you'll be in debt for the rest of your life. And watch out for those 40% overdrafts. 40%. What are these banks doing to us? They're killing us. They're just making loads of money, and that's why they've got the biggest buildings in the world in every town you go into. So that's my rant about banks tonight. Thanks for listening, and sorry about the rant here, but it does make me angry when I see that people are, millions of people have been exploited by the banks, because we know we can't move without them. They even want to abolish cash so that we can't even carry a bit of cash around in our pocket. They would love to have us under complete control, and but just do resist that. We need cash. I know a lot of young people don't use cash anymore, but believe me, cash is your freedom. And if the money goes completely digital, then governments or whoever can just take it away from you just like that, when they can devalue it and just take it away from you. So always keep some cash. Always make sure that the government keep your cash in your pocket, because it could be very important at a time of crisis like they had in Greece and Cyprus. So thanks for listening. This is Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money. Thank you.